All right, this one is the one that's coming up regularly. What happens when a resident passes away? If they're the only resident on the lease and the only occupant, you've got one thing to do. But if there's someone else, another resident on the lease continues. It just continues with one less resident on the lease. If there is no other resident on the lease and there's no occupants in the unit, it's an empty, vacant unit other than their property, you have to give notice to someone to come pick up that property. It's 10 days notice. There's a pecking order. The first person is the person who's been appointed to administer the estate by the court. So somebody presents a will, they go probate that will, they're the executor of that will. That person named in the will, that's who you want to send the notice to. Most of your residents probably are not going to have a will in place. So what you'll do is you'll find out someone's passed away. You will call the circuit court, not the general district court, but the circuit court of the jurisdiction where your property is located. And you will ask for the probate division. And it may take a couple phone calls. It's not like general district court where they're going to answer the phone every time. You may have to leave a message, but they'll call you back. And they will ask you for the decedent's name. That's the person who's passed away. And you tell them, and they'll tell you if someone's brought forward a will. And if they have, they'll tell you who the executor is. And you're going to want to write down that information, because that's the person, their name and address and phone number that we're going to want to contact and say, hey, executor, you've got 10 days to remove this personal property, or else we're going to dispose of it as we see fit. If there is no will and no executor and no administrator of the estate, then the next person in the pecking order is the emergency contact. Hopefully you all have an emergency contact listed somewhere in your application or in your lease. So if there's no one appointed by the circuit court to handle probate matters for the decedent, next step, you send a 10-day notice to the emergency contact. If you don't have an emergency contact, the code actually says you send the letter to the deceased party at their last known address. I assume the code envisions that someone is opening the mail for this person, because they're not going to get it. They're deceased. But you've got to send that notice to somebody, either the administrator or executor of the estate, or the emergency contact if that person doesn't exist. And if neither of those exist, then you send it to the deceased party and you give them 10 days to remove the stuff. Now, what happens after you send out that 10-day notice? 10 days goes by, nobody's come to remove the stuff. You can dispose of it as you see fit. You can give it away, you can trash it out, you can sell it. If you sell it and have an auction, you're going to have to apply the proceeds of that auction to the delinquent rent, to the account. Most of the time I see the property just trashing it out or giving anything of value to the maintenance men themselves to take. That's all fine. What I see frequently is the people who show up who want to get the stuff, brother, sister, daughter, son, are either not the people that the deceased party wanted to have their stuff. It's someone else. It's the bad son who shows up, who never took care of mom, but now he's there the day after she dies because he wants all the property. Or it's going to be family members who genuinely won the property, who are the good family members, but they're not listed as the emergency contact and the resident doesn't have a will. Give that 10-day notice to whoever you have to give it to in the pecking order. Wait the 10 days, and then on the 11th day, you can dispose of it as you see fit, which can mean giving it to that other person, that other family member. But you have to go through those steps before you can just give the property to whoever shows up. But you can give it to whoever shows up if you don't have any of those other listed people, and you give the 10-day notice to someone and you wait the 10 days. Then you can give the property away to whoever does show up.